there we go. Okay, so we are doing compare how the poets present conflict in Charge of the Light Brigade. And exposure. Okay, so that's your question. Owen?
Please turn the lights on so we can see it. Why would you shut the curtain off?
Better? It's not the clearest in the orange. Is that a bit better? Yeah? Ollie, can you put your gum in the bin, please? So based on, on this question, then what is the question about? Okay, so this one here. Okay, this bit here. So what I annotate, you need to do the same. Okay, so it's about the poet's choices. So what have they chosen to tell us? What have they chosen to show us? And what words have they chosen to use? Okay, so that all means what have they chosen to tell us? Okay. What have Why have we got show and tell in these two poems? What did we say on Wednesday? The difference between the two of them. Which one shows, which one tells?
Exposure shows.
And?
Light Brigade.
Tells. Okay. Okay, so what have they chosen to tell us? What have they chosen to show us? And what words do they choose to do this? That's the whole purpose behind the question. The focus is going to be specifically about the conflict. So we can then zoom in a little bit further and look at this bit here. Okay, so this now comes into the stuff that we were preparing the other day. So what types of conflict are they dealing with? What's the nature of the conflict? Have we got arguments? Have we got fighting? We've got war. Okay, so we've got war. What can you tell me that's different between Tennyson and Wilfred Owen?
Wilfred Owen's a first-hand experience, whereas Tennyson's a woman.
So he's a war poet, okay, which he's a soldier, and he writes poetry. Tennyson, okay, he was what? He was poet laureate, which means he's commissioned to do this. Okay. What words did they choose to do this? Yeah. So Tennyson was poet laureate, which means he's employed by the state, employed by the Queen, who was one of her favourites, to write the poetry. Okay. If his is first-hand experience, what was Tennyson's?
Third.
How did he find out about it?
Here's the newspaper.
He got it from a newspaper article. Okay? Now what we don't need to do is we don't need to put all of that as a potted history. Once upon a time there was a man called Wilfred Owen, he was a soldier. In 1917 he wrote a poem. We don't need to do that, but somehow this information needs to help us inform and work out what they've done up here. So all of this would have influenced those choices there. Does that make sense? Yeah? So if Tennyson was at the Battle of Balaclava in 1853, would he be writing about different stuff? Probably, if he survived. And if Wilfred Owen was at home nice and snugly next to the fire and he read about this or heard this on the radio, would he write about different stuff? Yeah, he would. So their experiences dictate massively the choices that they make about their poems and the words that they choose to use. Tom?
You could go back up to the top. A bit more so I can see where the ball.
Yeah?
What was the word next to poet? A-through poet.
Laureate. Laureate. Okay, so we need to follow the what, how, why, don't we? Okay. Let me just. Have I got a purple? I want to do it in a purple pen. I haven't got a purple pen.
Don't you have the like ink one? That one on the page.
What, the fountain pen? Oh, I do actually. Oh, I might not have any ink in it though. I haven't got. Oh, I do, and I do have an ink pot. There we go. I've got an ink pot. What colour's this? Oh, this is red. Oh, it's this one. Right. So the what, how, why then? Okay. What are the poets writing about? Okay. That's the subject and the theme, isn't it? So on our stilts sheet, that one. Yeah, this one here, just remind you. Okay, the what is going to be the subject and the theme. And we've already done a table, so we've already got those ideas. Okay, the how. Oops, sorry, or told us. Okay, how have they shown or told us about these things? That is going to be imagery, language, tone, structure. That's going to be everything else. Yeah? And we've already got that stuff. We then go into the why. So why have they chosen this particular approach? Okay. Why is this meant to be effective? Whether it is effective or not is irrelevant. It's why is it meant to be effective? So this is sort of going down to the poet's intention. Okay, and then also why is this important? Is this? Why is it important for the poet? And why is it important for us? Okay? So what you will then be finding is that you'll be finding that as we go through each of these different stages, as we know, you're building up the length and the strength of what you're saying. Once you've done that for one poem, you then move on to the next one, okay? But the two poems at this particular point, they're linked. This is what we're going to interleave in an interlinking structure. Okay? Are there any questions?
Will I say do this answer?
Do this for poem 2. Yeah? Now, in the exam, this one I think is 45 minutes long, this particular question. In 45 minutes, how many minutes is your pen on the paper for?
44. No.
In terms of writing your answer, how long is your pen on the paper for? 35 minutes. Which gives you how much time to get your head around what you need to do?
15 to 10.
10 to 15. Okay, so 10 to 15 minutes to get your head round all of the information that we need to think about. Key quotes, key ideas, key lines, developing those points, working out what you're going to write, working out what the question is asking you to do, and then you've got 35 minutes to constantly write. Is your pen on the paper constantly from start to finish for those 35 minutes? Never. Because you need to reread what you're writing, you need to reread what you're typing. So every time you finish a point, you need to go back into it to make sure that you are actually still answering the question. You don't have to read it in a huge amount of detail. Skim and scan, make sure it makes sense. Have you got all the stuff that you need? Do you have quotes? Have you talked about technique? Have you talked about tone, imagery, structure, all sorts of things like that? Have you answered the question? If you have, great, crack on to the next point. Next idea. Okay? How many points or points of comparison should you be aiming for? Do you think?
6. However many marks in 4.
It's not points and prizes.
6 marks. So 6.8.
I'm just choosing a random number.
17.
You need to be aiming for no fewer than 3 points of comparison. Okay? That does not mean you get three marks, because it's the quality of what you're saying rather than necessarily the quantity. However, if you shortchange yourself, you are not going to have enough writing on the page in order to demonstrate what you know. Okay? So a minimum of 3 points of comparison between the two poems, which, based on the table that you should have done for me from Wednesday, that isn't a bit of a stretch. That's not a stretch at all. If I ask you to then to push it to 6 points of comparison, you might be finding it gets a bit thin on the ground. So a minimum of 3, aim for 4 or 5. Okay? We're going to have a go. We're going to start it now, and then you're going to finish it. Okay?